Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. All right, so looks like the Chiefs are going to be playing the Buffalo Bills next Saturday. Glad that they beat the Steelers this weekend, so yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, this video should go up Friday night, so it'll be right before the Chiefs game. Or is it Saturday or Sunday? I can't remember, but this should go up right before the Chiefs game next weekend. Let me double check on that. I'm going to see real quick. Not to get too off track. Let's see. Sunday night and divisional round, so it's going to be Sunday. All right, and it's going to be a home game here in KC. That'll be fun. Yeah, Buffalo's looking pretty good. That's going to be scary. So I have a bad feeling this is going to be about as far as we get in the playoffs this year. So yeah, I love the Chiefs. I want to root for them, but man, they are just so inconsistent this year. I mean, our defense is looking better, but our offense they're just hit and miss right now. So we'll just have to see about that. Anyways, on to the important stuff. The season finale of The Witcher Season 2. Episode 8, Family Matters. Or Family, I believe is what it's called. So, yeah, man, a lot of big revelations in this episode. We finally get to see the Ciri, possessed by the witch Volthmir, make her way back to Kaer Morhen, along with the huge confrontation between her and the remaining Witchers there. So yeah, that was crazy to watch. And we see Ciri having what looks to be like a weird dream in the beginning of the episode, where it looks like she's being coaxed by visions from her past, as well as people that we've seen from season 1. And she's in like this ballroom and stuff, but unbeknownst to her, she's possessed by the witch who's going around basically trying to off all the other Witchers, which was a pretty brutal scene to watch. And then, of course, Jasker's like sleeping comfortably in some room somewhere, of course. That freaking guy kills me. And then we get to have a huge confrontation between, a big final confrontation between the possessed Ciri and the remaining Witchers at Kaer Morhen, which basically she summons these giant like lizard creatures to come out of this portal, and basically the remaining Witchers have to try to fight them off while Vesemir and Geralt try to take on Ciri. So definitely crazy to watch all the stuff that unfolds in this episode. This was a particularly brutal episode too. I just kind of wanted to note that during the big fight in Kaer Morhen, I mean, that was like, I forgot how gory this show can be. Like, without getting into too much detail there, like you see some guys getting torn apart. So that was definitely a brutal fight scene for sure. But yeah, and we do see that Yen and Geralt are both working together to try to help Ciri, as well as we get to see Vesemir, who seems kind of hell-bent on he seems more in line to try to kill Ciri, whereas Geralt and Yennefer actually want to save her. So that made for some interesting conflict there within the episode. So yeah, and that was definitely crazy to watch. And then, of course, I think it goes without saying there's going to be a lot of heavy spoilers in this episode of my podcast. So, but yeah, we also get to see kind of the aftermath of Francesca with her dead child, and we see in the episode Dara shows up and basically reveals that he's a Renandian spy, and he's been communicating with Ditchgra. I butcher his name every time I try to say it, but basically Graham McTavish. Essentially, Dara's been communicating to him this entire time. He's been a spy for him, it's revealed in this episode. And he kind of blames himself for the death of their child. And we do see Francesca goes to a village later on and actually uses her ability to kill several infants in that village, which was a very brutal scene to watch and definitely caught me off guard. It seems like she's pretty much hell-bent on revenge, so we'll definitely see kind of how that plays out later on in the season. Or, well, I guess next season. This season's over. But, yeah, that was definitely crazy to see. And then, of course, we see that Tissaia, along with several other wizards, appear to be trying to... They seem to be aware of Ciri, and now it looks like they're basically trying to go after her as well. So we see that in this episode, the list of people that are trying to find Ciri and use her for one way or another seems to be growing exponentially. So it looks like she's going to have a growing list of enemies next season. So I'm definitely excited to see how this all plays out in season 3. And then, anyways, back to the main plot point, or the main conflict at Kaer Morhen with the Witchers and Ciri, the possessed Ciri. We see that she goes into the main hall where they have the tree that has like the medallions from the past Witchers, and then she uses her scream ability to basically shatter the tree, which reveals basically like a small monolith that was hidden within the tree, which that part I was a little confused about. Because the Witchers seemed genuinely surprised by that. Like, Vesemir seemed genuinely surprised by that revelation. So I guess that was a part that maybe I just missed something. But, like, did the Witchers not know that was there? Not sure if maybe that was made clear and maybe I just missed it, possibly. It's very possible. I am not the most attentive depending on what time of the night I watch a show. And I watched this pretty late last night, so was very tired. It's very possible that I missed that little detail. But anyways, it was a cool revelation, don't get me wrong. But then when she does that, that's when she opens the portal, which brings the 2 giant lizard monsters out. And then we get the pretty cool but also brutal fight scene between them and the Witchers. And this is really kind of the main conflict of the episode. And then we see Geralt and Vesemir basically try to perform kind of a exorcism type ritual on Ciri to try to drive the witch Volithmir out of her. And then Yen also tries to offer her assistance as well. We actually get a pretty good comical moment with Yen and Jaskier in this episode, where Yen is basically trying to formulate a potion to help combat the witch. And then Jaskier is basically helping her with that. And then she basically entrusts him, which I don't know why you would entrust Jaskier with this, but she entrusts him with the task of bringing the stone to Geralt, which, as she tells him, can basically right wrongs, which plays a pretty big role later on, considering that the witch feeds off of everyone's negative emotions. So yeah, and then, of course, Jaskier is in the big fight in the main hall with the lizards, but he doesn't actually, obviously, he's not a warrior, so mostly it's just him kind of, trying to maneuver around the lizards while the Witchers are basically just getting thrown around all over the place. But that was kind of a cool highlight of the episode, was seeing the other Witchers and kind of using similar abilities to what Geralt uses, like the force shield / force push move that they use all the time. So that was cool to see for sure. Also, just as a side note too, there's this really cool scene. This is probably like a highlight for me in this episode, where when all the Witchers basically gather in the hall and face off against Ciri, she shatters the monolith crystal in there and sends all the shards flying at them. And there's this really cool slow motion scene where all the Witchers basically use their force shield to try to block all the shards flying at them. The shards go flying past them and then basically come back around and hit them from behind, and catches quite a few of them off guard, which I thought was a really cool, that was a cool maneuver that they added in the show. So I actually really liked that part. There were definitely some pretty cool and brutal moments in this fight scene for sure. And then, of course, I love the differing perspectives from Geralt and Vesemir throughout this. Like, I love how Geralt, of course, still cares about Ciri, still thinks of her as sort of a surrogate daughter and wants to try to protect her. And Vesemir, we can see throughout this episode that it's killing him watching the other Witchers, who, again, they're like children to him. It's definitely killing him watching them getting brutally torn apart by these vicious monsters. So he's wanting to end this as quickly as possible, which is understandable. To him, he sees Ciri as this big threat, and that she's basically the root of all of this, and that as long as she's alive, then there's going to be a threat to the Witchers here. So you can kind of understand and get behind both men in this situation. Like Geralt, who wants to protect Ciri and he just has her best interest at heart. And then, of course, Vesemir, who is just trying to maintain, he's not just trying to restore the Witchers, he's also trying to maintain what little they have left. So you can definitely understand where he's coming from in this regard. He's an old man who is kind of losing everything around him. So it's easy to sympathize with his character and how he feels in this situation. Plus, too, in his defense, he doesn't really know Ciri that well. He hasn't spent as much time with her as Geralt has. So to him, she's probably just this girl that Geralt brought into their castle. So, I love those two differing or combating ideologies throughout this episode. And again, how it kind of boiled down to being sort of an exorcist exorcism type situation between Geralt and Vesemir. And then, of course, we see Vesemir, he eventually does have to stop helping Geralt to try to save the other Witchers because he wants to, again, protect people that he considers his family, which, of course, leaves Geralt and Yennefer to try to stop the witch herself. And we do get this, it makes me so uncomfortable thinking about it. Yen finally does make this this sacrifice where she basically cuts her wrist to try to convince the witch to take her instead. And that was a brutal scene. I'm the kind of person, I don't like stuff like that, like slit wrists, like that stuff really bugs me. So that part kind of grossed me out. I had to kind of look away when she did that. But yeah, that was intense to watch. And then, oh man, I had to get some water. My throat was so dry. But yeah, like I said, that kind of thing has always really bothered me. It's made me so uncomfortable when you see slit wrists in movies and stuff like that. It's like in the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves, the scene at the end of the movie when he cuts his wrists to try to summon the devil, that scene, I can't take that. That's always really bugged me. But yeah, anyways, yeah, when Yen does it, that's a pretty cool character arc moment for her. We see her actually willing to, kind of put someone else's safety and well-being above her own, because it seems like throughout this season, Yen's kind of been more or less just kind of for herself when case in point, when she's basically spent most of the season trying to find Ciri and bring her to the witch. Granted, you could argue that this entire situation was caused by Yen, but at least now she's kind of realized the error of her ways, as she admits to Geralt earlier in this episode, that, she sees how great Ciri is and that she wants to help her. And then, of course, in this episode, it's, later on, it's revealed that basically they have to try to talk Ciri into coming back to them, who is still kind of in this dreamlike trance from the witch, who is basically trying to keep Ciri in this dream state so she can use her powers to do whatever she wants and basically to wreak havoc on the world. Also, too, another highlight action scene in this episode is she summons this really kind of big, I guess kind of like leader, like white lizard monster that comes through the portal, and Geralt takes it on one-on-one. We get this really brief but really badass fight scene where Geralt basically splits its head open and then knocks it off the bridge. It's like, man, freaking Geralt, man, that guy's a unit. His whole season, I feel like, he's been pretty much a badass since season 1, but man, this season he is just wrecking shit. I love it. Yeah, it's a very brief action scene, but man, it's good. It definitely it hits hard. And then we see finally Vesemir. We see an interesting moment where we kind of see even though the Witchers are supposed to be these emotionless people, we see Vesemir kind of finally lose his shit, and he tries to stab Ciri to end it. And then of course it's revealed that Ciri can just keep healing herself, and that's why they have to try to basically coerce her into coming out and to basically fight against the witch and to try to break her spell on it. Basilisks. I just looked it up. Basilisks. That's what those creatures are called. That's what I was thinking. I just couldn't think of the word. So yeah, that whole fight scene was just great. I really loved that. And then of course, I know I already said spoiler alert, but then of course it ends with they are able to drive the witch away. They are teleported to basically another plane or another world. And then this is kind of the big cliffhanger that they leave on, is that they see the witch does kind of float away, but then it leads to the Wild Hunt basically showing up. And that's kind of where the episode and really kind of the season ends. The Wild Hunt kind of finally show up and come towards them, Ciri, Yen, and Geralt. And then Ciri teleports them back to Kaer Morhen. Basically, Vesemir... It kind of ends with Vesemir saying that he needs to rebuild the Witchers, and then Geralt and Yen want to continue to protect Ciri from the Wild Hunt, who basically want Ciri to join their ranks, which, they're already pretty threatening enough. With someone like Ciri, who seems to have every freaking superpower there is, that definitely would not bode well for the world. So, also, yeah, it's Ciri can teleport to other worlds. That's interesting. It's I kind of touched on this last episode, but it's man, what is the limit of her abilities? What can she not do? Very curious to know. But yeah, and then basically, like I said, it kind of leaves off with, we see that there's a lot of other people out there that want to find Ciri, like Tissaia, the rest of the mages. we see that Istrid meets up with Francesca and the rest of the elves, and he also reveals Ciri to them as well, and that she has elder blood. So, and then Francesca kind of gets this idea that she could use Ciri to come to her cause as well. So, yeah, it looks like between the mages and Tisea, and then the Wild Hunt, it looks like we're going to have quite a few factions coming after Ciri in season 3. So we'll have to wait and see. I would assume in at least another year and a half, 2 years to see how that's all going to play out. But definitely setting up some big players coming down the pipeline. Definitely excited to see the future conflicts that are going to arise from this. So, and then of course we get the big reveal at the very end of the season, which I guess I forgot about this character, because again, it's been a while since I watched the first season. I watched a recap of it, but it's been a long time since I watched it. But then, of course, there's a big reveal at the very end of the episode where we basically see the Emperor has returned, and he's talking to Fringilla and Cahir, who are basically they're basically kind of lying to him to try to say that they planned the murder of Francesca's child. But then, of course, the Emperor tells him that he was the one that actually ordered it, and that he knows that they're lying, and that they're basically of no use to him. And then, of course, the big reveal is that he's none other than Dooney the Hedgehog Man, Ciri's father from the first season. So, yeah, that's crazy. Like, again, it took me a moment to kind of recognize him. Like, I didn't, because again, like I said, it's been a while since I watched the first season. So, like, that was, maybe that was supposed to hit harder than it did for me, but man, that was definitely crazy. So I'm definitely curious to kind of see how this is going to play out in the next season too. Like, it's going to definitely be interesting to see, how much of an impact this is going to have in season 3. I mean, I would assume if the freaking Emperor's after Ciri, then that definitely doesn't bode well for Geralt. Now he's got the Wild Hunt, supernatural warriors, and then he's also got basically an emperor and an entire country coming after her. So, yeah, definitely doesn't bode well for our favorite Witcher. So, yeah. Overall, though, yeah, this was I kind of assumed it was going to end on a cliffhanger. I feel like every show does these days, but yeah, like that was definitely a good cliffhanger to end on for sure. It definitely sets up nicely for future conflicts to come in the story. Yeah, just a few highlights in this episode. Again, one, the fight between the Witchers and the Basilisks. It's a long fight, but it's pretty cool, though. I loved I loved seeing the different Witchers kind of fight together, even though they all kind of use similar fighting styles. It was cool to see more than just Geralt fighting in this scene. I enjoyed that part tremendously. As well as we got to see Yen. Oh, also too, I forgot to mention this before. Yen does get her magic back in this, so she gets her chaos back. So she is basically back to the way she was before, and so Geralt kind of wants her to keep teaching Ciri the ways of magic. So that was a cool note to end on as well. And so that was definitely cool to see. And then another highlight, of course, is just kind of how it sets up for season 3. I think it does a good job of kind of wrapping up pretty much most of the plot points of the season in a pretty neat package for the most part. So I just need to make sure that I, watch a recap of this season before season 3 comes out. I should have plenty of time. So, yeah. As far as negatives go, honestly, not too many that I can really think of. Definitely, I would still say episode 5 of this season is probably my favorite so far. 5 and maybe 6 are probably my top 2. But yeah, this one was definitely good, though. I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit. I would have liked to have seen, I guess, maybe a little bit more from Volith Mare. Just the fact that they kind of built her up as this big baddie throughout the season. It would have been nice to kind of get a little bit more out of her. It felt like she was dealt with a little too easily, I guess. I guess I was expecting more of a confrontation with her. It would have been kind of cool to see Yen to get her magic back if there could have been more of a conflict between her and the witch. But still, I mean, I thought what Yen did, the way she contributed to the confrontation with Volith Mare, that was, it was a nice touch. It was definitely interesting, for sure. Yeah, and then, again, every actor in this episode definitely, they do a good job of you know of delivering the heavy moments, the emotions in the heavy moments, when needed. Again, Henry Cavill, great as Geralt. And then the actress who plays Ciri, she's fantastic as always. Let me see, Yennefer actress. I haven't looked her up in a long time. Yennefer actress. I really enjoyed her as well. I thought she did a fantastic job too in this. Anya Shalatra. Yeah, she's fantastic too as Yen. So yeah, just fantastic performances all around. And then it's going to be interesting though. I'm kind of curious, as far as season 3 goes with Ciri's character, if there's going to be a time skip, or if we're actually going to get to see her train more with Yen and Geralt as far as developing her abilities. Because I know in the game she's definitely kind of established as she's already kind of established that she has her powers. She kind of has good control over them. So kind of curious to see if season 3 is going to lead into that version of Ciri that we know from the game, or if it's going to be if we're going to see kind of more of her progression into that more established warrior. So I'm interested to see that. So yeah, Freya Allen, yeah, she again is fantastic as Ciri, and honestly, she might be, as far as performances go this season, she might be a highlight character for me. I feel every scene that she's in, she does a great job of giving Ciri this vulnerability, but also kind of this, I think I've said this before, this scrappiness to her character that I think it's a good balance that I think she brings to the character. It's a good sense of, that she's capable, but you also know that she's obviously this scared kid who doesn't really fully understand what's going on around her. And she does a good job, I think, of capturing that well, I think. So, let's see. Just want to check something real quick. Who was the actor that played Dooney the Hedgehog Man? Trying to see. I couldn't find the actor that played him, but yeah, that was interesting to see for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely excited for season 3. I hate that we have to wait for so long for the next season. I think it's going to be kind of rough. I really did enjoy season 2. I'll have to go back and watch season 1 again. As far as if I'll do a review over season 1, probably not an episodic one. I might just do a review for the entire season and just kind of do a summary for it. But yeah, as far as an overall score for this episode, I'd probably give it around a 9.2 out of, actually, you know what? I'll probably a 9.5. I know it's kind of a big jump, but you know what? It was a good, solid ending to the season, so I'll give it a higher score for that. Yeah, it was definitely a good lead up to the next season. So, yeah, and then as far as the overall score for the season, I would say probably, I feel I gave pretty much 9s all around. So I would say probably my average score for the entire season probably around 9.2 out of 10 for the entire season. So yeah, I would say that's a pretty accurate summation of my score for the entire season. So again, for me at least, 8 out of 10 would be highly recommended to see. Definitely check it out if you get the chance. So 9 out of 10 and up to me is just highly recommended. Definitely enjoyed it. Definitely really liked it a lot. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it for sure. And then also too, again, kind of another kind of moving along to my next episode that I'll be doing, or the next review I'll be doing is I watched the second episode of the season 4 part 2 for Attack on Titan. So again, I'm going to give another double feature tonight. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too. So yeah, got to watch the second episode of Attack on Titan, and again, spoiler alert, I won't go into the plot in too great of detail, but yeah, once again, just a few highlights for this episode, and just kind of a quick plot summary. In this episode, again, not a big surprise, picks up right where the first episode left off. We get to see more of the conflict going on in Paradise between the invading Marleyan military force. And we also get to see that basically Zeke has officially gotten back to the city and is actually helping Aaron, trying to basically reunite with him so that they can start what I assume is the rumbling. So, and again, it's not really revealed what the rumbling is, but it's most likely not good news. Well, I know it's not because I've read the manga. I know for the most part what's going to happen. So let me rephrase that. I've read most of the manga, but I know what happens in the end, so I know what's going to happen. So, but yeah, we get to see Zeke use his signature rock throwing abilities to try to basically give Aaron cover, and basically trying to take out anyone who gets close to Aaron, like the Armored Titan and then the Jaw Titan. Which, yeah, man, like freaking Zeke, man, that guy, he's a sniper. Like he's just picking people off right and left. And then of course we get to see Mikasa and Armin's group basically come out of their cells to try to. They claim that they're going to try to help Aaron. They tell the Jaegers they're going to try to help Aaron, but of course they're really, what they're trying to do is, I think they're the way I kind of read it is they're not really going to help Aaron. I think they're going to try to stop him. But yeah, we also get this. There's this scene with what is that character's name? The character that I thought it was a girl or a boy for the longest time, but it's a girl. The one that likes, or the one that's like the Jaegerist leader. I'm gonna look up that person's name real quick. Really terrible about remembering characters' names. Let's see. Attack on Titan, but basically you guys know who I'm talking about. Basically, it's the character that kind of looks like Armin, the blonde character, who's kind of the leader of the Jaegerists. And basically, we get this weird interaction where Armin tells this character that he wants to help Aaron, and then that character basically gives Armin this really goofy look. I don't know if it was supposed to be something that just wasn't animated well in the show or what, but man, it was such a weird moment. Let me see. Characters. I should know this person's name by now. Let's see. Well, regardless, you guys know who I'm talking about. They're kind of a newer character that was introduced this season. So, Yelena, that's it. Yelena. I could not remember that character's name. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, Yelena gives Armin this look that is just like it's such a weird look, and it almost kind of made me laugh because I think it's supposed to be intimidating when she gives him this look, but it's just not. Like, it's just so silly. In this scene when Armin says he wants to help out Aaron, and then we get to see this really weird, creepy look from Yelena that she gives Armin, and it's such a... I don't know, that part to me just kind of made me laugh, honestly. I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. I don't know if it was supposed to be serious, but it was just... it was just such a weird moment that, like, I couldn't help but laugh at it. So, yeah. And then, of course, we get to see more of the Cart Titan in this episode, who I gotta admit, I like the Cart Titan. I like that character, Pike, is that her name? I just like how she's so like just lethargic and kind of lazy and stuff, and she kind of crawls on all fours. They kind of reveal that in the previous season because she's just used to being in her Titan form. I really do. I like her character. I think she's kind of low-key becoming one of my favorite characters in the show, but... I also like how strategic she is with using her Titan form. Like the fact that her Titan's not very powerful, but she's able to put like these cannons on her back and kind of become sort of like a walking tank, basically. We get to see this cool little like surprise attack from her on the Beast Titan, which I'm not going to reveal too much about that. I think you should just watch it for yourself to kind of see. But it's a really cool, interesting, like strategic moment that I liked from the show a lot. So, yeah. And then of course one thing that I've really liked about this season, and kind of going off of the first part of season 4, is I love how they've managed to kind of make you sympathize with Reiner's character. I remember in the first time they revealed that Reiner was the Armored Titan, and then who the Colossal Titan was. I remember just thinking like that was such a gut punch moment, because it was these two characters that you genuinely liked, or at least I liked Reiner. He was one of my favorite characters in the beginning, in the early seasons. And he's kind of becoming my favorite character again. It's like you kind of hate him when you find out that he's the armored titan, but then in the first part of the first half of season 4, when you kind of see like what he had to go through in his past, as well as the other people like Annie and the other ones like Bertholdt, that had to go through all this stuff to become shifters, and it's like it's really heartbreaking to see because they were basically kids and they were kind of forced into these awful, just terrible situations, and like you definitely get a feel for them too. And of course, they were brainwashed to believe that all the Eldians on Paradise are just these crazed demonic people that don't deserve to live. But of course, that's just how they were taught. Zeke, on the other hand, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that Zeke is kind of a bad guy because, I mean, he does seem to genuinely enjoy tormenting the people of Paradise. But still, I mean, you can kind of understand why they feel the way they do, just given what they've been told and how they've been brainwashed by their military and government. But yeah, I love Reiner's character in this season, and just in season 4 in general. He is such a complex character now. Like just like the episode where you see he puts the gun in his mouth because he wants to kill himself because he's so just distraught over what he's done. Like he's so clearly just miserable and just hates himself for the pain and suffering that he brought to the Eldian people in Paradise. But at the same time, he knows that he's a soldier from Marley and he has this duty and responsibility to his people. And it's like he's just stuck in this awful place where it's just, what do you do? I love how they've developed his character in this. And that's one of my favorite things about season 4 is how they've done a really good job of making you really understand and sympathize where Reiner and the others were coming from. It's like, I'm definitely going to have to go back. Once I'm done watching the entire series of Attack on Titan, I'm definitely going to have to go back and watch the entire show from the beginning once again, because I really think that it's going to hit differently, knowing what I know and kind of knowing what's going on in this series. It's just crazy. And again, I'm not going to get into too much detail as far as like what's coming, because I know what's going to happen. And, I don't want to spoil too much for anyone out there who hasn't read the manga. I think it's good to kind of go into this blind, not knowing too much about it. In many ways, I kind of wish that I didn't know what was going to happen, just because I feel like it would hit much harder, but still it's going to be nuts. I think the ending is definitely going to be interesting to see. And I hope, with what's supposed to happen, I'm really curious to see how they're going to animate it. I would assume there's going to be a lot of 3D animation because I just think it's going to be such a big moment that I can't imagine them trying to do it with traditional 2D animation. But we'll see how that plays out. But we see Reiner in this episode, we see him tormented, trying to stop Eren, basically saying that he sees Eren as more of a devil because of this character he's become, and he wants to kind of end his suffering and Eren's suffering as well as people around him. And then kind of also during this episode, we also get to see that Falco is reunited with Gabby, who I will admit, I hated Gabby's character tremendously at the beginning of season 4. I hated her so much. She was such an annoying little shithead. But I have to say, I've come around. I don't love her character, but I do love the arc that she's gone through. With the girl that she met, the one that Sasha saved back in season 3, I believe. The blonde girl that Gabby met, and then it was revealed that Gabby killed Sasha, and then the girl found out about it, And that was such a heart-wrenching moment in the first part of season 4. And now we get this moment where that girl, unbeknownst to that girl, she's walking by and Gabby's hiding from her in this building, and we see the girl saying that she basically wishes that Gabby was dead and that she had killed her. And because earlier in season 4, we see that she tries to kill Gabby when Gabby reveals that she was the one that killed Sasha, which was a very heartbreaking moment, because earlier we see that these two characters, she was the one that kind of convinced Gabby that maybe the Eldians weren't the devils that Gabby thought them to be. So I really love how they've handled her character. I love how they've shown that she's starting to realize that the things that she was taught in Marley, may not have been accurate, and that, she sees that the people of Paradise are really just that. They're people. They're just like the people in Marley, except, they're not as technologically advanced, but they're also these people who are just trying to live their lives, and they've been tormented for years and years by the Titans. And we get to see that Gabby is now starting to realize that, a lot of her perceptions about these people were wrong. She was told to feel this way. She was told to think this way about them, but now she's realizing that that wasn't right. And so I'm glad to see her character starting to come around and seeing the development that she has. Also, kind of as a side note, this part scene kind of cracked me up. I just like how Falco he just kind of professes his love to her, it's just so funny. I mean, I get it because he doesn't, he thinks that he's going to die, so he doesn't want to die, not telling her how he really feels. So, I mean, I get it. It was a funny moment. It just kind of cracked me up. I love Falco. He's such a sweet character. Like, you can't help but love him. And like, he just gets the shit kicked out of him so much for Gabby's sake. Like in the previous season when she kills Sasha and Falco tries to stop her when they're on the airship. And then when she shoots her, the other soldiers basically just beat the hell out of both of them. And it's like, oh, come on, guys, don't hit Falco. He didn't shoot her. Also, like, I just love the name Falco. That's such a badass name. It's like Falco Lombardi from Star Fox, who was always my favorite character. I love the name Falco. It's such a badass name. But anyways, yeah, and then in the previous season, he also gets a bottle smashed over his head because the chef who really liked Sasha, the Marleyan chef who liked Sasha, finds out that Gabby was the one that shot her, so he tries to hit her over the head with a wine bottle, and then Falco gets in between him and he gets it in the head. That poor guy. He just can't get a break. But yeah, and then basically the episode leads off with basically Zeke gets shot by like an anti-Titan cannon, essentially, and he basically falls off the wall, and then Aaron is still trying to make his way slowly over to Zeke, and so. Basically the two, because I think it's revealed that Zeke has royal blood in his veins, and then Aaron has the founding Titan powers, which the other characters basically discuss, like if they come into contact, that's how the rumbling is supposed to start. So, and again, it's not really revealed too much what the rumbling is or how it's going to affect the story, but it's a pretty safe bet that it's not going to be good for anyone other than Aaron and Zeke. So yeah. We don't get to see any of Levi this episode, so I'm definitely curious to see what's gonna, how that's gonna play out in this anime. Even though I shouldn't say that I pretty much know how it's gonna play out. I guess what I mean is I'm just kind of curious to see, how they're going to animate that part of it, how they're going to handle that within the show. But yeah, again, definitely a solid episode. Again, I don't know if I'm going to do an episodic review for the rest of the season. I guess it depends on how many episodes there's going to be. I might just reveal a few episodes at a time. I guess it just kind of depends. Yeah, the funny thing is, now that The Witcher's over with, I need to find another show to talk about. So, yep, I will be working on the review for Midnight Mass. I'll be working on trying to get that up probably later this week, maybe potentially next week. We'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. But yeah, to get my overall score for this episode of Attack on Titan, I would probably give it a good solid, I would say probably a 9.2 out of 10. Good episode. I mean, other than the situation, the conflict with Zeke showing up, not a whole lot. There's not a lot of big moments in this episode. There's a lot of kind of quieter moments between characters talking, but I don't really mind that, honestly. That's kind of one of the things that I really like about Attack on Titan is that even though when it has a heavy action scenes, I mean, it really has some pretty heavy action scenes in it, but it's also an anime that's not afraid to kind of slow down a little bit and just let it breathe and let the characters just kind of talk and allow you to get to know them and understand who they are on a personal level and kind of their different perspectives on what's going on. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the show. You kind of get to see the internal turmoil that these characters are going through, like case in point Reiner, which is one of the reasons why he's become one of my favorite characters in the series, to be honest with you. I really love that I was kind of afraid he was going to be just sort of like a one-note villain in the earlier seasons, and I'm really glad that they've made him this really deep three-dimensional character that you can kind of sympathize with. You may not necessarily agree with what he's done, but you can kind of sympathize with why he's doing what he's doing and kind of how he came to this point in his life. So that's one thing that I definitely love about the show too. It has that Game of Thrones feel to it in that regard, where it's like there are some characters in the show that do feel like they're clear-cut villains, but but for the most part, there's a lot of morally gray characters in this show. They're very human characters. And yes, a lot of what they do some things that are very horrific. But when you think about what they've been through and the things that they've seen, you can kind of understand why they would do it. In many cases, they're soldiers trying to survive a war. And I think that's a fine line that I think Attack on Titan has done a great job of treading. So, yeah, like I said, I think I might have to go back and just rewatch the first three seasons again, and maybe just watch the entire series once this final season is over with. That could even be something that I do a review of too in the future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Well, anyways, guys, that was my review for the season 2 finale of The Witcher, as well as the second episode of Attack on Titan season 4 part 2. So, hope you enjoyed, guys, and I will catch you next time. Later.